Nintendo has been turning into a company that only cares about money, with record high prices, mediocre games, and a progressively less friendly company image dividing their fanbase and posing the question, what happened to the version of Nintendo that cared about their customers? Well, in this video, I'm going to discuss where Nintendo went wrong. Why has Nintendo changed their perspective on money so much? And most importantly, I'm going to expose their greedy habits, because Nintendo has done some really crazy stuff in the past. Let's jump right in. Now, to understand why Nintendo is so greedy, I want to remind you of what it was like when Nintendo actually cared about their fans. And one of the most important people in this mission was Satoru Iwata. Satoru Iwata was the global president of Nintendo from 2002 to 2015. Iwata was known for being a very friendly figure, and he kind of understood that the world of gaming was about fun and not about business. And in 2011, Iwata proved that this was his personality in the most honorable way. Because after the 3DS released at the very high price of $250, Nintendo was starting to lose money. But instead of firing employees to make up for the losses like most executives would do, Iwata cut his salary in half. Iwata also had a big part in starting Nintendo Directs up and expanding their reach. He hosted a large number of Directs and he came off as very warm and friendly. But after Iwata unfortunately passed away and some new leadership came in, Nintendo started to become a more greedy, business-first company. And while you might think that Nintendo's greed started when they priced Mario Kart World at $80, it's been happening for far longer. Let me give you a couple of examples. One example of this greed is the release of Super Mario 3D All-Stars back in 2020, and it all has to do with the controversial decision Nintendo made to make this game a limited time release. Because Super Mario 3D All-Stars was only available between September 18th, 2020 and March 31st, 2021. With Super Mario 3D All-Stars, you can really see the business side of Nintendo shining through, and along with that, the greed. Because as it turns out, selling 3 best-selling Mario classics on a system where they aren't at all available for a limited release during the holiday season is the perfect storm to sell as many units of something in the shortest time possible. And this strategy ended up really paying off for Nintendo, because when it was all said and done, Super Mario 3D All-Stars sold over 9 million copies. Now, of course, there were some physical copies that kind of floated around for a couple of years because Nintendo probably wanted to sell those physical copies, but they prioritized having a limited release just to sell as many copies of 3D All-Stars as they could at that time. But this is a perfect example of how Nintendo puts money over their fans. But that example is far from the only time that Nintendo has milked their fans for profit. If you remember The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, that was the first time that Nintendo raised the $60 pricing standard to $70. And while that might sound like it makes sense because Zelda Tears of the Kingdom has a lot of content in it, but this large amount of content in Tears of the Kingdom was kind of reused. Because while Tears of the Kingdom was an impressive game, it reused a lot of the maps and textures from its prequel, Breath of the Wild. And I honestly feel like Nintendo was just testing out $70 games, but they also took advantage of the hype of Tears of the Kingdom to make a little extra profit off of a game that was already significantly boosted by content Nintendo had previously used. But those examples don't even include something else that Nintendo is notoriously greedy when it comes to. Those things being remakes and ports. Nintendo knows that their fanbase is nostalgic and they're rich because of it. So when it comes to either porting or remastering their older games, Nintendo charges the highest price possible that they can get away with. Luigi's Mansion 2 HD is the best example of this. The remake itself costs $60, and while that's a problem on its own, it's not the main issue here. The issue is that the $60 price tag is the highest price this game has ever been. Luigi's Mansion 2, or known as Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon on the 3DS, cost $40 when it came out. That means that Nintendo sees Luigi's Mansion 2 HD as such a valuable asset that they are willing to charge $20 more than the historical high for this game on the 3DS. And this strategy is insane on its own, but let me back it up with a recent example. The Super Mario Galaxy 1+2 bundle released at $70 just about a month ago. But if you add up the price that you would have paid for both games originally on the Wii, which is $50 each, it totals out to $100. And with that bundle, there is a bit of depreciation here. The games are less money than they were originally on the Wii, so that's a good thing. The issue is that Nintendo is selling these remasters separately for $40 each on the eShop, which is only $10 less than the original price on the Wii. But Nintendo's pursuit of money doesn't stop at games, because Nintendo's legal decisions have also proven to be quite unpopular. There is of course the unpopular Palworld lawsuit started by Nintendo, where Nintendo is basically claiming that Palworld stole mechanics that they patented to use in their game. And the optics of this lawsuit are actually horrible. It's a very concerning thing that Nintendo is trying to trademark game mechanics, essentially. In my opinion, and most people's opinions, trying to patent game mechanics just seems like it's going too far. Like, it's one thing to try to patent your intellectual property, or trying to keep people from copying your brand image. To me, it's kind of like if Coke tried to sue Pepsi for being too similar. It's just kind of a crazy claim. But the Palworld lawsuit isn't the only legal dispute that's been controversial with Nintendo lately. There's also the entire Switch 2 bricking situation that occurred earlier this year. Basically, Nintendo changed the terms for their EULA, or their end user license agreement, to make it so that they could brick your Switch or Switch 2 if you downloaded software that didn't comply with their terms. Now, I haven't seen a single verified case of this actually happening, and you guys can tell me down in the comments if I'm wrong about that. But regardless, the Brazilian government was not having it, because Procon SP, the Brazilian Consumer Protection Agency, essentially told Nintendo that the terms of this EULA are questionable under Brazilian law. But now I want to discuss who or what turned Nintendo into such a greedy and entitled company. Well, the way I see it, it's pretty simple. Nintendo has always been this way. A good example is the Wii Sports dispute between former Chief of Operations at Nintendo of America, Reggie Fils-Aimé, and the executives at Nintendo Global. Reggie wanted Wii Sports to be a pack-in game for the Wii, and he pushed really hard for this to be the case. He thought it would be a good idea to show off the proprietary concept of the Wii to people and kind of how to use it. But of all people, Shigeru Miyamoto, who is not at all known for being involved on the business side of Nintendo, pushed back, where Miyamoto stated, quote, "Neither of you understands the challenges of creating software that people love to play. We do not give away our software." Wii Sports was only included with the Wii because Satoru Iwata, who I mentioned earlier, decided that it wouldn't be a bad idea to include Wii Sports with the Wii because it would teach people how to use it and kind of explain the technology. Miyamoto was reportedly not happy about this, and I think that's the best example to show how Nintendo has always operated as a business. Miyamoto's quote summed it all up. They don't give away their software because they think it's extremely valuable. But anyway, let me know down in the comments section what you think of all of this, and if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe.